One of the tried and true naming methods. I can't talk anymore. Hey yo, and welcome back to my channel where I talk about writer things, parent things, and writer-parent things. This week we're going to be talking all about naming characters. Please do keep in mind that these videos are all based on my experiences, which are not universal. Take what you can, leave what you can't. Let's get something right out there in the open off the bat, shall we? I see a lot of conversations surrounding, is this character's name too similar to this character? And without fail, there will be somebody who's like, I think their names are different enough. It doesn't matter if the first letter is the same or not. The first letter, arguably, and I mean I'm arguing it, is the most important letter of a name, because the way brains work, most brains, neurotypical and a-neurotypical, don't actually read most words all the way through. They take the first letter and the last letter, and then they just kind of guess based on the letters that are in the middle. Which means reading the first letter of a name is going to open that list of possible names for the brain. And while naming characters is hard, so I know that we might not always want to tell somebody, hey, you should rename your characters because people might get them mixed up. Somebody should tell the person this because, I mean, think of the readers and the writer. It is a special kind of frustrating when I have to reread a scene because I mixed two of the characters up. And before anybody points out that I'm dyslexic, because, well, I am dyslexic, but it's not a dyslexic thing to mix up characters. If I misread the names, that would be one thing. But if I'm mixing up Tatya and Tanya, that's not a dyslexic thing, it's just a brain thing, and it's something that's easily avoidable by just changing one of their names. It could be Tatya and Anya. Fear not though, I have a tip for this later on. One of the tried and true naming methods for both fantasy and sci-fi is making shit up. I'm really not against this one. I think that it can be really interesting and produce very memorable names. I myself like to take normal names or things and just kind of mix them up a little bit. For instance, I took the word silver and I made it silver because I think that sounds really fancy, and I use it for a deity of the shadows that has a silver magic mark. It works for me. It can be an issue when there are too many or the spelling is just a pain to my dyslexic soul. We really don't need 80 apostrophes in every elf name. Please don't do it. Just take my word for it. Just please don't do it. Also, giving every single character a made-up name might in fact be too much for some readers. They may get overwhelmed and it might take them longer to connect to the characters. I have a few friends that have this issue. I, however, grew up on anime, so I had to adjust to learning new names in a lot of the animes until the names became normal to me. This never really lessened my enjoyment of the medium though, so it's not a con to me, but I am listing it because it is an issue for some people. I personally believe the key to made-up names is just making them easy to read and make sense for the culture that they are in. If you have a name that is spelt R''IT''YMA, and then I'm told it's pronounced Shia, I'm gonna side-eye. I'm gonna side-eye so hard. Not gonna lie, this is probably my favorite and most commonly used naming convention. Meanings. I'll look up names that mean power and names that mean strength and then make a list and compare, decide which ones I want and which ones I don't. Maybe even set some aside for later. To be clear, I don't always just go with a name that means power or a name that means strength. I might pick a synonym, or I'll pick a core theme or symbol for the character and just go from there. Sometimes I'll even do this for families, like having siblings that have names to do with the sunrise: Aurora, Dawn, and Alba. Naming conventions can be really fun. This isn't to say that all names have to have a meaning or that those meanings even have to be cool. If you make up a name, you can make up the name's meaning too. Go wild, stay mild, do you, my child. Kinda along the same lines, but different than having names with meaning are having names be references to something. Now, I am sure that everyone has seen some form of media that does this, such as having witches or characters who are moon-themed named Luna, Diana, Artemis, or Selena. These are 4 different goddesses or representatives of the moon in Greek and Roman mythology. Using a name as a reference can also be really good genre shorthands. For example, a family of vampire or monster hunters named Van Helsing, or a really old eccentric guy who doesn't come out a lot during the day named Vladimir. This bit's a little more for visual mediums, but having background or side characters look like characters from other fandoms or things that the creator enjoys can also be a really fun reference. For example, there's a comic where the Martian Manhunter disguises himself as a Japanese woman named Rei Hino, which Batman recognized as a Sailor Mars reference, so I guess Batman watches Sailor Moon. Other fun Easter eggs could be referencing our own work, which could get into crossover territory, but hey, it's all in good fun anyway. So if any of my urban paranormal peeps run into Alita and Jamie, some of you may know why. I've spoken about believable versus realistic before. Sometimes, no matter how much research we do into ancient names, the perception of the name may just in fact be that it's too modern for people to believe that it would exist in that particular setting. Tiffany, for example, is the English version of the Greek name Tifania, which I probably said it wrong, just forgive me and roll with it. It's also a biblical name and has a lot of different variations, such as the French Tiffany. Kind of like Michael, which has Michael and Miguel and is biblical as well. But I don't really know anybody who would put these 2 names in the same category. And while I am and forever will be in the camp that fantasy is fantasy and should not be bound by the laws and rules of historic Earth, I do think it is important that we understand what our readers are going to have problem with, what their perceptions are going to be, and generally just how they're going to react to things. Because we as creators need to know what they're going to have trouble believing so we can kind of decide which battles we want to pick and choose. With that being said, would I totally write a fantasy story about a badass warrior queen Tiffany? Fuck yeah, especially if I could make that short for Queen Theophania and her friends call her Tiff. Names are generally one of the places that we can really push the reader's envelope, and I say, go for it. As long as people aren't mixing characters up. Please avoid that. Well, Sam, yes, viewer, what if the culture I'm writing, all of their heirs start with the same first syllable, or all of the siblings share a first syllable, or maybe I just found 2 really perfect names that I cannot see the characters living without, they have to have these names. What do then? Well, viewer, I've got just the tip for you. Nicknames! It's a super simple solution that I just don't see anybody else talking about. Now, my name is Samantha. For those of you who did not grow up in the south of the US of A in the 90s and early 2000s, my name is super fucking common. I had 4 or 5 Samanthas in every grade with me. Sometimes I went by Sam. Sometimes I went by Sammy. Sometimes one of the other Samanthas would just go by their middle name because that was easier. Very rarely were we Samantha last name letter, because the name Samantha can be broken down into quite a few different options. And middle names are basically just backup names in case your first name didn't work out. So for this, we're gonna count middle names as nicknames too. I have a Killiam and a Kieran in my whip, the Silver Air. However, I almost never refer to Killiam as Killiam within the whip itself. I'm actually kind of changing his name out in the outline too, because my CPs kept getting Killiam and Kieran mixed up. So now I just refer to Killiam as Liam, and it has not been a problem since. These are a wonderful tool. I highly recommend using nicknames. They can also be great characterization. I had an MC who never gave anybody a nickname or used anyone's nicknames, except for the guy she had a crush on, to which she called him Sweet Cheeks. He thought because of his sweet tooth. Really, it was because she liked his smile and his ass. Nicknames. Have fun with them. Alright everybody, that's all I got for you this week. How do you name your characters? Do you use any of the mentioned methods? Or do you have your own methods? Let me know in the comments down below. I host live streams every Monday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I post new videos every Wednesday. If you'd like to see samples of my writing, you can check out my website right here at samanthaalnasset.com. If you'd like to stalk my social media, that's cool too, at Samantha L. Nasset on Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook. If you liked this video, maybe give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring-a-ding that bell. I hope to see you soon. Sam out.